to Keele University, which had a foundation year, an extra year, where you did a bit of everything. And one evening I ran into the professor of law in the pub, who bought me half a shandy, as you did in those days, and said, how are you going to make up your mind which subjects you're going to read for your degree? Because at the end of the foundation year you could choose anything. And I said, I don't know. As I do this course, this foundation year, I keep changing my mind like I change my socks. And so he fell about laughing and said, yes, you're all the same. I suggest you come to some of the first year lectures. Everybody will be delighted to welcome you, and if you'd like to come to mine, you'd be very welcome. And the rest is history, really. He also arranged for me to go to Strasbourg University to do a diploma in comparative law, and that really gave me the passion for not just other legal systems but for international work, and that was really always my ambition, which I seem to have managed to fulfill. It was a great culture, very entrepreneurial. They encouraged everybody to play to their interests and passion and develop their own practices, subject to some adult supervision, of course, and reining in periodically. I found myself sucked into a vacuum. There was a lot of M&A work on at the time. And then suddenly, out of the blue, someone came into my room and said, would you like to go to Bahrain? One of the senior associates there has got to come home for an operation on his foot, and could you cover him for 3 weeks? I stayed for 3 years and wound up running it. I was really the only woman in her 30s by that time who was actually leading a professional service firm. And it was a fantastic experience. I think maybe because I was unique, it attracted some sort of stardust to me, and so I became well known. And it occurred to me that, you know, everybody on the island was either my client, somebody else's client, or a potential client. And it taught me a great deal also about the nuts and bolts of running a practice. It was a good firm in which a woman could thrive. I felt very included. Although I have to say that after a while, because I was getting fairly senior, I was wondering if they were ever going to make me a partner. My brother said, the trouble is, if you behave like a doormat, you get treated like a doormat, so you'd better ask, which is often a message I deliver to young women. There's no harm in asking, men don't think about it. I remember walking along the Aldwych back from lunch with one of the senior partners, and I said, you know, by the time we get to the Aldwych Theatre, I am going to ask if I'll be made a partner. We walked past it. I didn't have the courage to do it. We got to past the Waldorf Hotel. I thought, I'm going to do it now. Well, eventually we got to the front door, and I said, there is a question I have to ask. And he said, what's that? I said, would they make me a partner any time soon? And he said, oh, good grief, would you like to be a partner? Well, let me go and see what I can do. So I was a partner within a few months of that. The next highlight was a very peculiar interview to do the work on the project documents for the Channel Tunnel. McKenna's is known for its construction and project work. And I was asked if I had seen a concession agreement for a cross-border tunnel before. Honesty is always the best policy, or at least it's option one. So I said, no, I hadn't. And they said, that is absolutely the right answer. And that gets you to the starting line. He said, you'll be surprised how many people have said, yes, they have seen one before, but there hasn't been one. Anyway, for a couple of years, I worked on, primarily the concession agreement, a bit on the treaty for the concessionaires, and then helped to draw together the other project documents into a single coherent set for the project. At the end of which I was sort of known as a major projects lawyer. I wound up leading a team of 40 lawyers, giving birth to the national grid, writing about 700 codes and agreements. We were the only firm that had ever done it to implement a competitive wholesale market in electricity. I married about 3 weeks after vesting of the national grid in its new form to a widower with 2 teenage children who said, I didn't marry you for you to be their mother. You can never be their mother. They have lost their mother, sadly. You have acquired some extraordinary know-how. This is what you need to do. You need to export it. And so for the next 20 years or so, I lived my life on the back of an aeroplane. The children would come with us. We both travelled a lot, would come with us on school holidays. They love travelling now. And I've worked on major reforms of electricity industries ever since, now working in Alberta on, I think, my 44th jurisdiction. I had to fight an election. It's a local election like any other in the city. To get elected. It's probably the scariest thing I've ever done. And it's one of the reasons that there aren't actually very many women. But anyway, I progressed to be Lord Mayor with, actually, I have to say, quite a lot of support. People saying it's about time we had another woman being Lord Mayor. There had only been one before me in 825 years, since 1189. The moment that you become Lord Mayor, it feels as if you are on top of the world. Everybody is looking up to you. You know by that time that you have got a team. You can do anything with staff. You've got a team around you whose measure of success is your success. And the way in which it starts is at the most merry weekend with a splendid ceremony that is famous for being silent. And then the Lord Mayor's show the next day, when you are trained to be able to hang out of the Lord Mayor's golden coach and wave to everybody and wind up at the law courts, having required under a charter of 1215 to obtain permission from one of Her Majesty's judges. The whole thing feels then as if you're in a film. You're Cinderella at the ball. It's an extraordinary feeling. On the Monday, you have to speak before the Prime Minister at the Lord Mayor's banquet. No pressure there. And then Tuesday it starts, when it feels as if you're on roller skates, running over cobbles, downhill, sort of gently downhill. You're learning how to do it. I travelled to 26 countries, all different sorts of agendas, with different sorts of business delegations. But also there was an opportunity for me to do something of my own. And I produced, probably for the first time, a prospectus, a mayoral prospectus, which was designed to enable a lot of people to engage with the mayoralty. And one of those was called The Power of Diversity. If you're an electricity lawyer, everything's about power and transformation and all this sort of stuff. And I'm glad to say that it's still running. What's changed for women lawyers is that everybody wants women to succeed. There's much more focus on creating an environment that keeps the female talent. So it's a different world. But I mean, in my team, my team is oil, gas, and electricity. There are actually lots of women doing some really quite tough stuff, writing in algebra, what have you. But I'm a trustee of the Science Museum now, which does sterling work promoting science, technology, engineering, and maths to young people, and particularly girls. That's an area which really where we've got to push.